Hi, everybody. Um, I'm back in my house today. It was nice yesterday to be outside, wasn't it? It was a lot of nice warm days that we had in a row, and that was fun to go outside together and do yoga. Because I love doing yoga, and it was fun because we got to do a lot of yogas together. So let's see. Today it's a little chillier, so I'm staying inside today. Though I did take my dog on a walk in the woods. But now it's a nice cozy day to stay inside and read. And I thought it would be a good time to make another video and talk to you guys because I just have been missing you guys. And one of the things I miss is being able to read stories with you guys. And so we're going to read two stories today, and they're both about frogs. And you know what frogs like to eat? They like to eat bugs and worms and stuff. And so we were just talking about bugs, and so now I thought we could read some books about frogs because frogs like to eat bugs. So the first story we're going to read is called It's Mine. It's Mine. And this book is by someone named Leo Leone. He is really wrote a lot of really great books for kids. He wrote that book called Swimmy. Do you remember that story about the fish who was swimming and then the big tuna came along and ate all the fish in Swimmy's school of fish? Only Swimmy survived, and then remember Swimmy swam away and saw all those amazing things in the ocean, and then he found another school of fish, and they were too afraid to swim in the ocean because of the big tuna. And then, do you remember what they did? Swimmy thought, and then he had a really good idea, which was to get all the fish to work together as a group and to swim together all in their own place so they looked like a big gigantic fish. And then when they practiced and they were able to do that, they could swim all around the ocean together and they would scare away the big tuna. So I don't know if you remember that book. We read that in the fall, back in the autumn, and that was called Swimmy, and that was also by this same author, Leo Leone. And this one is called It's Mine. Okay, there's the first page. There's the first picture before the story starts of a frog trying to catch a fly. In the middle of Rainbow Pond, there was a small island. Smooth pebbles lined its beaches, and it was covered with ferns and leafy weeds. That looks like a nice place to live. On the island, there lived 3 quarrelsome frogs. Quarrelsome means that they argued and got in fights all the time. The frogs were named Milton and Rupert and Lydia. That's funny. We have a friend named Lydia, don't we? These frogs quarreled and quibbled from dawn to dusk. From dawn to dusk means they quibbled and they argued all day long. From the time the sun came up in the morning until it was nighttime, all they did was argue with each other. "Stay out of the pond," yelled Milton. "The water is mine." "Get off that island," shouted Rupert. "The earth is mine." "The air is mine," screamed Lydia as she leaped to catch a butterfly. And so it went. All they did was argue. One day a large toad appeared before them. "I live on the other side of the island," said the toad, "and I can hear you shouting, 'It's mine, it's mine, it's mine,' all day long. There is no peace because of your endless bickering. You can't go on like this." And with that, the toad slowly turned around and hopped away through the woods. No sooner had he left than Milton ran off with a large worm. Look at that. A large worm. The others hopped after him. "Worms are for everybody," they cried. But Milton croaked defiantly and said, "Not this one. It's mine." Suddenly, the sky got dark and a rumble of distant thunder circled the island. Rain filled the air and the water turned to mud. The island grew smaller and smaller as it was getting swallowed up by all the rising flood of rain, and the frogs were getting scared. Look, the water is getting so high in their pond, it's covering up the rock where they live, the island where they live. Desperately, they clung to the few slippery stones that they could still see above the wild, dark water. But soon, these stones began to disappear too. Soon the rocks will be covered up. There was only one rock left, and there the frogs huddled, trembling from the cold and from fright, from being scared. But they felt better now that they were together, sharing the same fears and the same hopes. So now they were all afraid of the water together, and they all hoped together that the rain would stop and they would be safe. Little by little, the flood stopped. The rain fell gently, and then the rain stopped altogether. But look, the large rock that had saved them was not a rock at all. It was the toad. "You saved us," shouted the frogs when they recognized the toad. The next morning, the water had cleared, and it was a lot lower. Sun rays chased silver minnows on the sandy bottom of the pond. Those are little teeny fish. Joyfully, the frogs jumped in, and side by side they swam around the island together. Together they leaped after the swarms of butterflies that filled the air. And later, when they were tired and they rested in the weeds, they felt happy. They felt happy in a way that they had never felt before. I wonder why they're feeling happy now. "Isn't it peaceful?" said Milton. "Isn't it beautiful?" said Rupert. "And do you know what else?" said Lydia. "No, what?" the others asked. "It's ours." And that's the end of the story. The last thing she said was, "It's ours," which means it belongs to us all together, and we get to share it. They seem a lot happier since they're not arguing with each other. It's nice when we get along with our friends, isn't it? And we're not arguing with them. And people in our family is not so good when we argue with the people in our family. Sometimes that happens, but it's always nice when we can get along and share. And I know you guys are really good at that. You've learned a ton about that, working together at school and being friends and growing up. And that is why the kindness bottle is all filled up with pom-poms. And that's why we're going to have an ice cream party soon. An ice cream party. We'll have it. We will definitely have it. Don't worry, even if we have to have it in the summertime. Because you guys learned so much about sharing. Sometimes people still say, it's mine. Oops. And that's okay sometimes if it's something special or if it's something that you are using and you just are having your turn with it. And then you can tell people, well, I'm using it right now and I'll let you have it soon. But these frogs, they weren't sharing anything. But they discovered that they were a lot happier when they could work together. Also, they learned something from that toad who was very friendly and helpful, wasn't he? He thought they were being very rude and loud and arguing all the time. But when the water got too high, he saved them. So that was nice. He thought of them. He was stopped thinking of himself, and he thought about what those quarrelsome frogs mean. So, okay, we're going to read another book about a frog. This one's kind of silly. It's called The Wide-Mouthed Frog. Wide means kind of big. Like sometimes you might hear that word if you go to the doctor. Usually our mouths are kind of small. You know, they're just... And then if you open it a little bit, the doctor, if they have to look down your throat to see if you're sick, they might say, open wide. And you have to open your mouth as big as it'll go. So that's wide, like a wide mouth is when you open your mouth as big as it'll go. So in this book, it's about a frog that loved to talk and was talking to every other creature he would see. And he'd always tell them all about himself and how he was a wide-mouthed frog. And he wanted to know what other people were interested in and what they ate. And so this is an adventure about him. The Wide-Mouthed Frog. It says a pop-up book. So that's going to be cool. Okay. Here goes. I'm a wide-mouthed frog and I eat flies, said the wide-mouthed frog, shooting out his long, sticky tongue. Oh, what does he have on there? Oh, a fly. Yum. As he hopped along around the pond, he met a blue-feathered bird. I'm a wide-mouthed frog and I eat flies, said the wide-mouthed frog. What do you eat, bird? And the bird, snapping his pointy beak, said, I eat wriggly worms and slugs. Next, the wide-mouthed frog met a furry brown mouse. I'm a wide-mouthed frog and I eat flies, said the wide-mouthed frog. What do you eat, mouse? I eat crunchy seeds and juicy berries, replied the mouse, wriggling her whiskers. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. See, can you see how big the frog's mouth is? It's pretty big. It's almost as wide as his face. The wide-mouthed frog was still catching flies when he saw a big green alligator. I'm a wide-mouthed frog. Here he is over here. And I like to eat flies, said the wide-mouthed frog. What do you eat, alligator? Let's see. We'll try to get the alligators. Ooh. What do you eat, alligator? What do you think the alligator eats? This is a surprise. I eat delicious wide-mouthed frogs, replied the alligator, showing his sharp white teeth. Ooh. He eats wide-mouthed frogs. The wide-mouthed frog stopped catching flies, and now look at how big his mouth is. And he gulped. Oh, and then he puckered his lips and made his mouth as small as possible. Now his mouth is very small. Let's see how big it was in the beginning. Look how big his mouth was in the beginning when he said he was a wide-mouthed frog and he ate flies. But then when he found an alligator who eats wide-mouthed frogs, he said, he puckered his lips and he made his mouth as small as possible so he wouldn't look like a wide-mouthed frog. And he said, "Oh, you don't see those wide-mouthed frogs very often, do you?" And he leaped into the pond with a splash. And there he goes. That's funny. Huh? That's a really great page, isn't it? Let's see the last page. Splash. That's so silly. He wasn't he didn't know, I don't know why he didn't know to watch out for alligators, but now he knows to watch out for them. Okay. This is one of my favorite things, reading books with you guys. So I'm going to read some more tomorrow. I have more books about things that live in ponds. Tomorrow we're going to read a book about these beavers. Beavers are so interesting. You know what my favorite animal is, right? You guys all know that it's a sea turtle. But one of my next animals that I really like is beavers because they're so interesting. They're so smart. And they're just really good. They're really great at building, and they're really good at making a place to live. And they're kind of cute, especially in this book. They're cute. So we'll read this book tomorrow, and we'll read another book about a little girl who likes to hang out at the pond and all the animals that she sees and creatures that live there. Okay. Well, I'll show you my cat over here just to say goodbye. She's so cute. Look, she's sleeping in the chair. She's so sweet. Look at her. She's so cute. Okay, well, I think that's all the news for today. And hopefully the sun will be out tomorrow. But I think it's going to be a little bit colder. So maybe we can I'm going to call Beth and see if she will go to the school and get a show and share bag. And maybe she'll make a video and do show and share. That would be fun. Okay, I love you all. And I'll see you tomorrow.